I do not know your history.
You are messenger and message both, it would seem.
Life has a way of punishing you for the mistakes you make.
A society that can prevent mankind from fracturing and destroying itself in this new world.
Sometimes we forget that the light of our society shines beyond our borders.
We don't have to dream that we're important. We are.
We've walked the Lonesome Road. We've came this far. We now understand Ulysses' journey and why he strayed from the ideals of all other available nations, making him a nation of his own. But it's not over. We now have to decide where we stand. On his side of the border, there's a great reset planned for the future of the Mojave, a moment to make history into whatever we want it to be, and the power to dictate a better future. But standing apart spares the people of a second apocalypse and leaves a path to redemption. But before we consider redemption, we must first decide if we're even responsible, given specific conditions. The second theme of Lonesome Road is the notion that all of your actions, no matter how small, have repercussions, even if you don't remember doing them. Relevant to our history, considering it's as checkered as Benny's suit.
Ring-a-ding.
Swaths of time, lost before our amnesiac awakening in Goodsprings. We were tasked with delivering an iBot, which activated the codes for the buried nuclear arsenal underneath the twin cities of Ashton and Hopeville, resulting in their complete annihilation, transforming them into the Divide. The unlucky survivors are now trapped in constant suffering, as their skin is washed away by the violent sandstorms, but kept alive by the very radiation which morphed their bodies. A city of marked men's unending torment, caused by our hand. The creatures unleashed from the depths are added byproducts of the destruction we've wrought. The prompt for the theme emerges. Can we really be blamed for unintentional mistakes? We were merely the courier. We didn't know what we carried, right? Now, there are three main methods of determining moral culpability, and they're all hotly debated, so I'll just give you the framework. For us to be blameworthy for the destruction of the Divide, we must meet a few criteria. First, we must have awareness of action. We must be aware that we're performing the action in question, and be aware of it under an appropriate description. We can't be lied to. That wouldn't be our fault, which may or may not be the case if the NCR withheld critical information. Secondly, the awareness of moral significance. In other words, we must have an understanding of the actions being wrong, or a belief about the presence of features which make the action wrong. And lastly, is the requirement of awareness of consequences. We must understand the events occurring are actually a result of our actions, usually in the terms of reasonable foreseeability rather than actual foresight. So with this framework, we're agents acting with a degree of free will within a reasonable capacity that's made the moral decision to act. With that, we may or may not be responsible of the cataclysm we've caused, depending on how much information we were granted. And despite us leading the Legion and the NCR to the Twin Cities territory, how could we have known it would have eventuated in its death? We can use a thought experiment to encapsulate this premise. Take a child in imaginative play, as human children do, flips a switch. Except the child had no reason to expect such a consequence from flipping the switch. They're undoubtedly causally responsible, blameworthy even. But does that mean they're held to moral responsibility? Maybe. Because of their age and limited experience, we've decided it's not appropriate to hold them morally responsible for the outcomes of their actions, despite even if they're causally responsible. But this leads to the next question. Does the magnitude of the consequences of this mistake even matter? Generally, I think we should be held responsible for unintentional mistakes. It forces us to contend with our actions and fully utilize our faculties to weigh the outcomes to the best of our abilities, which in turn typically discourages or reduces harmful action. But the degree of moral responsibility extends only so far as to having the freedom to choose and act. If we choose to be negligent, then it's on us to accept the consequences. But if the NCR held a gun to our heads and forced us to action, we could be absolved of it. Of course, there would be exceptions for special conditions, amnesia being one of them. Prior to amnesia, and despite not knowing, I would consider us to be partly responsible for not doing our due diligence of learning what we carry. But considering we legitimately don't remember things that we've done in the past, we might as well be a different person. We wouldn't punish the body for wrongdoings. That doesn't make any sense. We punish the mind. And for all intents and purposes, it's already dead. What we do from the point of our awakening in Goodsprings ultimately reveals who we are now. So when we finally traverse the Lonesome Road, these new notions of personhood can yet again be challenged by the actions of our past, which we may very well be against, but share a degree of responsibility for nonetheless. Or do we? Whatever we determine for ourselves, it doesn't necessarily mean Ulysses has applied the same logic in determining our moral responsibility. To him, we're every bit as guilty. He believes the consequences of our actions determine moral culpability, and neither we, nor from whence we came, are worthy of redemption. A cunning wordsmith can challenge his ideals and influence them, but I wasn't capable of doing so, leaving me one option.
You've already answered for what you've done. Now the flag you follow will answer for it.
So can we achieve redemption, or must we concede to punishment? But what is redemption? The act of atoning for a fault or mistake, to recover a status by a satisfactory exchange. In this context, as an amnesiac, do we even seek redemption? Usually those that feel guilty of something are the ones to do it. So I guess it'd be up to each one of you. How responsible have you determined yourself to be? And once you've answered that question, redemption asks, can we do enough? Generally, the path to redemption begins with much of the same framework of establishing our moral culpability. Once again, we require the awareness to recognize that we've done something wrong and fully accept responsibility. But the divergence from that framework is that this time we have to determine to never do it again, which puts us at odds with our fellow courier. Perhaps the path to atonement is by bringing about the prospering of others. But is it weighed on simply counting the amount of people we help? It's kind of hard to make up for the torching of a city. We could spend a lifetime trying to redeem ourselves and still fail to square the balance against the lives we've destroyed. Ultimately, there's probably no single answer to what redemption means, especially if you don't feel responsible, thus absent of guilt. It very much could be as illusory as Ulysses' fabled utopia, a mirage radiating from the embers of the old world. You made it this far. Impressive. If you're enjoying the video, do all this stuff. It's free and it really helps. And check out the Patreon to support me directly. For just $10 a month, you can help to feed a helpless dog, to a hungry boy who's only ever known the taste of flesh. Looking at Lonesome Road as a standalone DLC would be a mistake. Instead, we have to look at it from a sequential perspective. The conclusions of the throughline of not only the DLCs, but the main quests altogether, and the finality of our journey. But with our mere destiny in Ulysses, it's not a journey unique to us. Ulysses' life is a perfect illustration of the thematic throughline across the Mojave. With his context, the recurring themes of the DLCs are ever present and equally realized. He turns down the platinum chip out of disillusionment, inadvertently causing our first death. So we're immediately dealing with degrees of responsibility, his and ours. After our resurrection, we have to decide what kind of person we want to be as we journey about the wasteland surrounded by old world relics, adopting or forming new ideals of our own.
Praise the Creator and bless you, Wanderer.
People don't exactly line up to find out what's in my head.
Your lucky day, human. Antler believe you.
Depending on what we've chosen, it either plays into Ulysses' demonstration of infectious, outdated ideas that need die, or we don't, and we become him as we seek to build our new nation. Honest Hearts not only explores the themes of religiosity and its questionable influence, but it gives us the origins of Caesar's legion. It reveals Ulysses' role in the sacking of New Canaan as he delivered weapons to the Whitelegs and provided training with how to use them, leading directly to the War for Zion, a conflict we're later forced to resolve, and it wouldn't be our first encounter with those completely enamored with the religion. Old World Blues explores the themes of what it means to be human, and the fundamental inclusion of history as a part of it. Being that we don't have one before our start at Goodsprings, we can only judge the merits of our humanity based on what we've done since. Our actions being indicators of the boundaries we've set for ourselves. But have we set boundaries? Or do we have more akin to that of Vault-Tec? Despite Ulysses' absent role in Dead Money, he was the one who told Father Elijah of the Sierra Madre, therefore is indirectly responsible for our capture and enslavement. The Dead Casino acting as a litmus test, we can truly realize our vices alongside others driven here by theirs. New and recurring characters challenge the ideals we've developed since our reincarnation, while also reflecting the virtues of the many we encounter in the Mojave. Greed, lust, control, gluttonous hunger. Ulysses too can't let go of what we did to him and move on from the crimes committed to his desolated homeland. But his interpretation is likely that we can't move on without destroying the old. Never mind the fact that we could potentially turn New Vegas into this new nation, but it's hard to determine the ideal nation, considering our experience might have put us on the path to disillusionment as well. Ulysses has been on the hunt for answers to these questions long before us, which is why he believes in starting over. It may very well be impossible to create something new and good when the foundations are so tarnished and corrupt. In taking all this into consideration, it emphasizes the impact a single person can have on history, even if we're unaware of their involvement. Us and Ulysses' dueling destinies that have steered and interfered with life. The major events and preceding character actions are cyclical. His role in the grand narrative a perfect path to behold the carefully constructed bookend to the Courier saga. Sadly, I can't say enough about the achievement of New Vegas and the consistent thematic throughline. Even now, I'm amazed at the execution, and I'm surprised at how well these themes were incorporated across the story, and how I was forced to unknowingly interact with them, not realizing what's happened until sometimes days after. They managed to put the themes to work on us as players, testing us as much as the characters themselves, in a grandiose narrative which begins way before we awaken in the Mojave and carries on long after having left our mark. It's for this reason that I would consider all of the DLCs absolute must-plays to anyone getting into the New Vegas wasteland. Personally, due to these videos, I've been spending months in them. Admittedly, I was probably needlessly harsh on many of my critiques, and some of the things I pointed out are lesser problems than they seemed. Critiques that were obviously to personal taste and largely informed by a first-time impression. Couple that with the runtime of my videos and I'm bound to miss stuff. But every time you guys challenge my perspective or inform me of something I missed, it adds to the totality of New Vegas that continues to impress. The truth is, I'm astonished at the level they were capable of consistently grappling with throughout the entirety of the base game and accompanying DLCs. Despite all the struggles, there's an infinitesimally small margin of games capable of representing such deep themes with rigid consistency and accuracy, with powerful characters and arcs across multiple installments, while taking risks and liberties with level and gameplay designs, under the usual constraints of game development, and still f***ing nail it. It's an incredible achievement that I'm happy I've got to experience. Sure, it wears its age on its sleeve, but all the preferences, issues, or complaints I've pointed out in my series of videos was only to elevate this title from fantastic to legendary, to maintain a standard of what we should expect from those claiming to be in the same league as Obsidian, and to push the established boundaries for the future of RPGs. And this is all to say that New Vegas is something special.